Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to this episode where we're going to learn about the Tyranids, the subjectively best army in the game. You've heard me on this channel before talk about them a lot, and I figured it was time to come on and really give you a in-depth look at what this army does and can do, whether if you want to play it or if you find yourself going up against it. I'm going to go through and tell you about the army rules, different attachments, notable units, not quite every unit. Some are just not honestly played that often, so are less relevant than others. And hopefully try to inform you about what to expect when either piloting or coming up against the Hive Mind. Hive Mind. A good place to start is kind of with why to play them if you are looking into it. And honestly, I always tell everyone, play with what you think looks cool. That's what drew me to Tyranids. I love their very non-standard humanoid appearance, that they look alien, they are much different. And luckily their rules kind of follow that design aspect as well. They have many unique units and abilities that other armies just either can't replicate or only copy a couple of. So if you like, xenomorphs, the Flood, the Zerg from StarCraft, things like that, this is definitely going to be up your alley aesthetic-wise. Moving forward onto the army itself, though, when you pick up this army, you do get two rules regardless of what attachment you play. And their first one and most notable one is, most well known, I should say, is Synapse. This is a rule that has changed since the beginning of the edition, and even since their codex dropped. We were one of the first codexes in the edition, so it has had the longest time span for updates. What Synapse is it is a keyword as well as an ability. Every Tyranid unit has the Synapse keyword because they can all be affected by it. The Synapse ability is kind of what you want to look out for, and it is on much fewer units than the keyword, such as your Hive Tyrants, the Swarm Lord Flying Hive Tyrant, and the Walking Hive Tyrant, Brood Lord, the Neuro Tyrant, Turvagon, Winged Tyranid Prime, Tyranid Warriors, Zoanthropes, and Maleceptors, and Norn Emissaries, I believe, are the... Oh, and Neurolictors as well. Now, they also got added, the Synapse keyword. Or the Synapse ability, I apologize. What it is a 6-inch aura that gives you any Tyranid unit, any friendly Tyranid unit, a 3d6 on their Battle Shock tests instead of the normal 2d6. This is Battle Shock specific, so not leadership tests. For example, the Exalted 8 Bounds ability to make you take a leadership test or not be able to fall back, you would not get the third d6. But every instance of a Battle Shock test, forced or natural, you do get the extra die and get to add up all three. This makes Tyranid's relatively bad leadership of 7 to 9, depending on the unit, actually pretty reliable. The average, I apologize real quick, the average of 3d6 is 10.5, so anywhere from 10 to 11, more than 50% of the time, you are passing these tests. The other thing that GW saw fit to add a few patches ago, a few FAQs ago, was if a unit is within range of a Synapse model, or the Synapse aura, you get +1 to your strength characteristic for melee attacks, which is actually quite huge. It does break a few notable benchmarks, most notably on the Gene Stealers, Tyranid Warriors, and Hive Tyrants. Gene Stealers go from strength 4 to 5 with this, which is massive. Warriors go from strength 5 to 6, again, a very nice breakpoint for heavy infantry or going into things like Guardsmen, GSE, or Elves. And Hive Tyrants go from strength 9 to strength 10 and are inherently twin linked on their Bone Saber and Lash Whip. So that is also very nice for taking out light to medium vehicles and other monsters. So very nice buff there. But that is only half of our army roll. The other half of our army roll is actually the most notable one here. And it is the Shadow and the Warp. What this is, in practice, is a once per game ability that you get to call in the command phase, you or your opponents. It is in the command step of the command phase, so that means it is not in the battle shock step. And because of that, they cannot use Insane Bravery to auto pass this. And it is a army-wide, or battlefield-wide, I should say, wave of battle shocks. Every enemy unit must take a battle shock test if it is on the field. And there are ways to modify this particular test. Synapse, again, if an enemy is within one of your Synapse auras, they get a -1 to this test. If you have a Neurotyrant on the field, the Neurotyrant's ability on its data sheet is subtract 1 from all battle shock tests caused by the Shadow and the Warp. And Tyranids have a myriad of other ways to interact with battle shock that we'll get into as we go over the units and stratagems, but that is a strength of this army, is just throwing battle shocks at your opponent and asking them if they feel lucky. To be fair, it is also asking yourself if you feel lucky. I have had games where my opponents have passed all but one, and the one didn't matter because it was a guy holding a backboard edge, so I couldn't come in from reserves. I've had other games where it has took what would have been an 18-point turn and got them 3 points. It is a casino that could go either way, but more often than not, if you time it correctly, it can and you will benefit you to more than it will help your opponent or not affect them. Going on from that, we do have detachments, as we do have a full codex. We have 7 detachments, counting the Grotmus one. And these are quite the mixed bag as far as competitive viability. As far as running any of them, they are all very flavorful and can be very fun if it's what you're looking for. Ranging from pretending like we're Necrons and regenerating and reanimating to running big stompy monsters, to running a just swarm of gaunts and bodies on the battlefield, to more specific things like focusing on our sneakier vanguard creatures or our wave of just synaptic assaults from our leader bugs. We will start from the top, though, with what was our index detachment and go into the invasion fleet, as it is called now. What Invasion Fleet gives us, it is kind of the Gladius of Tyranids. It is your generic detachment that takes every Tyranid unit and makes it just a little bit better. It doesn't really try to guide you on how to list build. Going with that, the hyper adaptations are start of the first battle round, you get to pick one of 3 options. You can pick Swarming Instincts, which is anytime a Tyranid model makes an attack against an infantry or swarm enemy unit, you get sustained 1. This is shooting, fight phase, Overwatch. It's just as long as you make an attack, you roll that 6, you get 2 hits against infantry and swarms. Their next one is Hyper Aggression. It is the same thing. Whenever one of your Tyranid models attack an enemy monster or vehicle, you get lethal hits. This one is one that I particularly favored because some of Tyranid's hardest matchups is high toughness units, knights, greater demon spam demons, things like that. Necron Doomsday Arcs and Catans and Silent King is also very untenable, or can be for Tyranid. So we do have a hard stop of T10 plus. So this really does help get around that, and I will go more into that later as well. And then the last one, which is less good and rarely taken, but does exist, is Hive Predators, where anytime you target a character unit on a critical hit, which is a roll of 6 on your die to hit, you get that attack has precision. This one's not good. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's the other 2. It's sustained 1 against infantry or swarm, or lethal hits against monster and vehicle. If you are fighting beast and cavalry spam, there is nothing for you here, so that is a hole in the army. But right now, aside from what I believe is the Wolf Guard style Wolf Jail list from Space Wolves, that is not much of a problem. There is not many cavalry-based armies running around right now in the meta. So past the detachment, we have 4 enhancements, and all of them are pretty good. Usually 2 of these are run, sometimes 1, sometimes 3. Starting from the top, we have Alien Cunning, which is a 30-point enhancement that you can put on any character, and it is just simply a redeploy. You can pick up to 3 of your Tyranid units and shift them around the battlefield, as well as put them in reserve, regardless of how many units you have there. So you can kind of null deploy your opponent if you're on Planet Bowling Ball and want to use rapid ingress tricks or other things to lengthen how long you'll be alive on the board, rather than being shot off turn 1 and 2. There is Perfectly Adapted, a 15-point enhancement. Again, this can go on any character. It is not locked to any one type of model. And it is once per turn, yours and your opponent's, you get a free reroll to a hit, wound, damage, advance, charge, or save. So it is very good in both phases. It is it basically a 2 free CP every round you're using this unit. It is very nice. It is very cheap, and usually finds its way onto a Hive Tyrant or Flying Hive Tyrant, sometimes even just a Broodlord. It's quite nice. We have the Synaptic Linchpin enhancement. That is any Tyranid unit within 9 inches of the bearer of this has Synapse, or counts as within Synapse range of your army. This is quite nice if you're running Synapse Light, which can happen. Particularly, this goes great on the Parasite of Mortrex, which is not a Synapse character, but is rather a lone-op infantry character that moves 12 and flies. So it can keep itself safe, move quick enough to really give this Synapse aura where you want it, for either reinforcing Battle Shock, spreading a -1 to your Shadow on the Warp test and to your opponent, or giving you a myriad of other buffs to enhancements, because a lot of enhancement or stratagems, almost every stratagem in this attachment gets better if you are in Synapse range. It really encourages you using that rule. And as well, since the Parasite does not have Synapse natively, this gives it to it, and instead of the 6-inch version most units have, this gives it a 9-inch aura, which is almost twice the size if you measure the full diameter from 6 to 12. The last enhancement is Adaptive Biology, which is the best, and this is the one that goes in every list, even if the other 3 don't make it. And it is a 5-up Philopane for the bearer. Again, can go on any generic character into the Tyranid roster. And if it starts a turn below starting health, that 5-up Philopane goes to a 4-up Philopane permanently. None of our characters can heal, so you can't get the 4-up Philopane and go back up. But there are times when a Screamer Killer or a Pyrovore blows up, or an enemy Rhino blows up, or, Nemesis Grandmaster Dread Knight. Any of those things that deal D3 mortal wounds, they deal 1 or 2 wounds, and suddenly your 10 wound Tyrant is down to 8 or 9 wounds with a 2-up, 4-up, and now a 4-up Philopane on top of it. It gets Tonka tough. Even the 5-up Philopane makes it a bear to get through for most opponents you'll face. So very good spending of 20. Most Invasion Fleet lists stop about 1970, 1975 if they can swing it exactly, because they budget for room for that enhancement. Moving on to the stratagems, we have Rapid Regeneration, which is in your opponent's shooting or the fight phase. Just after an enemy has selected as one of its targets, you pick one of your units that was selected as the target. So they say, I'm going to attack this unit, and you activate the stratagem on that unit. Until the end of the phase, shooting or fighting, you get a 6-up Philopane ability. If you are within Synapse, though, that goes to a 5-up Philopane. This is the bread and butter stratagem for this attachment. It will be used every turn, sometimes twice a round. Your fighting phase, if they hit you back somewhere, or say when a combat interrupts, and then their turn when they inevitably attack you on their offensive. It is amazing. It's good on Exocrines, Maleceptors, Swarm mode if you're running him, the Neuro Tyrant, unit of Gene Stealers, even if you're running 20 Gargoyles or Hormagaunts or something, it makes people have to overinvest when they're used to just putting just enough in. It is great. Going on from Rapid Generation, we have Adrenal Surge, the only 2 CP stratagem in this detachment. It is the fight phase, period. You or your opponents. You can pick up to 2 Tyranid units that are within Synapse range of your army, so in that Synapse aura from one of your brain bugs, that is eligible to fight, or just 1 unit. It is 2 CP whether you pick the 2 in Synapse or 1 not in Synapse. But until the end of the phase, each time they make an attack, they score a critical hit of 5, which is important because we go back to the army, this attachment rule where you get sustained or lethal hits. Suddenly, your Hormagaunts are just auto-wounding vehicles on 5s, or just dicing through 10 guardsmen, hitting on 4s, and 2/3 of their hits getting double hits. It is very nice. 2 CP makes it not necessarily spammable, but it is often used and very powerful when it's used. I have personally used this on a Hive Tyrant and on 1 eye alone to chop through a unit of Custodian Wardens with Trajan Valoris tied into it. I didn't even roll particularly above Ravage, and he didn't, fail that many saves, and I just still scooped the unit because of the sustains. It was very nasty. Next up, we have Death Frenzy. This is the kind of use it if you really need to stratagem that most attachments have. It's in the fight phase just after an enemy unit selects its target, so it is before you know the result of the fight, but when you're targeted. You pick 1 Tyranid unit from your army that was selected, and until the end of the fight phase, for each model destroyed, if it has not fought yet, roll a d6. On a 4-up, you don't remove it, and then it fights. Basically, it's a 4-up fight on death, essentially. But you kind of have to call your shot before you get attacked. So if you happen to spike saves, they roll a 1 dice, you could just waste this. You cannot wait till you die to spend it. It is that's something about Tyranid. There is a lot of odd timing on things. You cannot just assume it's going to work, or work like other stratagems that have come out since. Again, this is a very early codex in this edition. Next up, we have Overrun, a very fun stratagem. It is 1 CP in the fight phase just before one of your Tyranid units consolidate. So you fought, you've killed, you're no longer in combat, you get to consolidate 3 inches. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit makes a consolidate move, it can move an additional 3 inches as long as it ends that move within an engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. So you get 6-inch consolidate to go tag another unit. And if it's within Synapse range and it's not within engagement range of any units already, you get to just make a normal move up to 6 inches, which is very nice because normally if you say you kill something in no man's land, you're not in range of an objective, you're not in range of an enemy unit, you're just stuck there. Well, this kind of gives you a fight and fade type ability where you can just shift 6 inches out of line of sight. There is also other plays you can do where if you're already in combat, that extra 3 inches can't. If you're a unit couldn't necessarily, you have 10 Gene Stealers, and the back row couldn't quite make it into base there, but there's a unit 5 inches away. You could go tag them now and make their life difficult in your opponent's turn. They will get to fight you, of course, but if they can't fall back and act, they can't, do actions while in combat, you could really hinder their score. You're going to hear me talk a lot about that. That is a prime thing about this army, is using all your tricks together rather than just focusing down one thing hard. Tyranids do not excel at any one thing exactly, but they rather are kind of more of a jack of all trades. As you see as I go over this, there will be various highlights on things such as the Adrenal Surge for a bump to damage, the Rapid Regeneration for a bump to resilience through a Feel No Pain. This is a bump to your mobility. It's all just little things here and there that you have to kind of piece together yourself as you play the game, rather than just counting on, say, overwhelming force of firepower or overwhelming defense of, -1 damage, Feel No Pains, or what have you. So Tyranids, if you like to play the whole game of 40K and not hyperfixate on certain aspects, this is a very good army, and especially this attachment for that. Moving on, we have Predatory Imperative. This is in your command phase. You can pick 2 units that are within Synapse range, or just 1 Tyranid unit that if it's not. And you get to pick 1 hyper adaptation that it's affected by. Those are your army rules, in addition to the one you already chose at the start of the game. So if you were fighting someone who had monsters and infantry in the same unit, for example, you could then tag on lethal hits and sustain hits for the 1 unit you want to send into it. This one is almost never used because those keyword combinations are very rare in this game. Ironically, Tyranids are one of the few armies that have it, with the Neurotyrant being able to join Zoanthropes now. Whereas the Neurotyrant is a monster and Zoanthropes are infantry, as well as the Hive Tyrant being a monster and Tyrant Guard being infantry. So, but you very rarely use this, and there is a restriction on this stratagem as well. It should be obvious, but GW did put it down to make sure. You cannot select the same hyper adaptation you selected at the start of the first battle round. So you can't give something double sustain 1. Not that that rule does anything, because it's the same rule twice. But they went ahead and said, no, don't do that. And the last stratagem is probably the second best stratagem, second most used for sure. It is Endless Swarm. 1 CP, your command phase. You can pick 2 Endless Multitude units that are within Synapse range of your Synapse, or one that's not in range, and you get D3 plus 3 destroyed models back. What Endless Multitude is are all your Gaunt units. It is your Hormagaunt, Termagaunt, Gargoyle units that, and I have had, personally, so many people leave a Gargoyle or 2 alive, think that's only 2 or 4 OC, you can't do anything with it, and suddenly I'm back up to like 8 Gargoyles, 7 Gargoyles, and I just run over and steal. I've stolen 2 objectives with that play before, putting 6 on one, 6 on another, and a 2 in the middle to hold them together. This strat is so good for retaking your objective to score primary, then going and sniping one of theirs. It makes them have to finish it off, because if they don't, then you are going to just flip anywhere from 10 to 15 points for 1 CP. It is fantastic. So with that, we have a little bit of revival, a little bit of movement, fight on death, offense in the fight phase, feel no pain. So this is Invasion Fleet. I wanted to start here to give you an idea. This is a good holistic picture of the army. Combined with our rules, Shadow and the Warp, and some of the unique units and tricks we have, this is a really good way to start getting an idea of what you're getting into with Tyranids. As I said, they are a jack-of-all-trades style army. They do not excel at movement, though that is probably their strongest suit if I had to pick. They are not great at melee. They do have 2 or 3 notable melee units that will bloody your lip. Shooting-wise is probably where they could be argued to be strongest, with things like Execranes, Maliceptors, Tyranofexes, Zoanthropes. But even still, they are not a premier shooting army. They do not hold a candle to even the Tau, let alone other, like Space Marine armies that can just give you, or Guard, for example. They are not someone who wants to line up and just get in a shootout. Durability-wise, Tyranids are not the most fragile in the game, but more fragile than you'd think. There are very few invulnerable saves in this army, but to make up for it, our stuff is about 10% cheaper than some of the other armies' things they bring. Like an Execrane is 140 points now, but it's still about 25-30 points cheaper than, say, a Castigator from Sisters of Battle. It's not as tough, but its firepower is much more, well, not necessarily more, but very respectable. So things like that. And as far as the high end of durability, we don't have anything like a Catan, for example. We have the Norns, the Norn Emissary being the tougher of the 2, with a built-in 2-up save, 4-up invuln, and 5-up Fennel Pain with its datasheet rule to pick an objective and guard it with 15 OC. Even that, though, is not super hard to kill in today's meta. I've run them quite a few times myself, and every game I've run them, they have died. It may have taken a turn or 2, and in a rare instance 3, but it still falls. So this is not an army that is going to outlive your opponent. You are very rarely going to outkill your opponent. You can outmaneuver your opponent. As I said, movement tricks is somewhere where we do have quite the advantage. But yes, it is more that we can compete in every one of those fields, that you can sew together a game plan. And the thing that I personally think is Tyranid's biggest draw as a player is that if you can play on the fly, you can change your game plan even mid-turn. Tyranids can really reward you. You can go from going all in to spreading your damage and just weakening their front and just keep your game plan going while disrupting theirs. Or vice versa. You can go from a wide approach to just, pincering in their center and breaking their army in half and making them fight on two fronts. So it is quite good at reactive gameplay and creative strategy. So with that, we will go on to the next attachment, which is the Assimilation Swarm, which has changed quite a bit from release. Excuse me 1 second, gotta get a drink. The Assimilation Swarm is one of the ones that kind of directs you on how to build your list by giving advantages to a keyword in the Tyranid Codex, Harvester. Harvester units are units such as River Swarms, Pyrovores, newly added the Norn Assimilator, Psychophages, and I believe... the Horsebacks, the big monster. With that, in your command phase, each Harvester unit from your army can regenerate one friendly Tyranid unit within 6 inches of it, so it is a target ability within 6 before you get to move. And each unit can only be regenerated once per phase, so you can't stack on healing to the same unit again and again and again. Notice this, once per phase. We will be seeing healing happening later outside your command phase, don't you worry. When you regenerate, you can pick one of two options. You pick one model in that unit to regain D3 plus 1 lost wounds, so a little bit of a better reanimation protocol. Or one destroyed infantry model, excluding characters, return to that unit at full wounds. And if it's an Endless Multitude unit, one of those Gaunt variants, Hormigaunt, Termagant, Gargoyle, you get 3 models flat instead. So it is a very nice way to recoup losses. As I said, Tyranids are not known for their durability, but we are able to, as I said, a Norn can take 2 to 3 turns to kill. In this detachment, that can easily go to 3 to 4. And that is not even including something like, you heard me, the Gargoyle trick I told you, where they don't quite get wiped out, and so you are able to then pull them back from the brink, and this is just a flat 3, so it is very nice. That is their detachment rule, though. Their enhancements, these enhancements are probably the weakest part of this detachment, I'll say. The detachment rule is very good. The stratagems are very good. The enhancements aren't so great, but we'll go through them. We have Regenerating Monstrosity, so it's a Tyranid model only, excluding monsters, which for your characters can be the Parasite of Mortrex, the Broodlord, and the Winged Tyranid Prime, as all the other characters are monsters, that being the Hive Tyrant with Wings, Neuro Tyrant, and Termagant. All have the monster keyword. The Bearer's unit can be regenerated up to twice per phase instead of once, so you could put this on a Broodlord and bring back 2 Gene Stealers rather than just the 1. You could put it in a Warrior Brick, and if you have 6 melee warriors, you could bring back 2 if they take losses. So it's not often taken. It's 20 points because, again, that usually if someone goes after a Warrior Brick or a Gene Stealer unit, they try to wipe them, but it can be used. Also, and if you have a I apologize, no, you can't. I was going to say Zoanthropes, but the leader of the Zoanthropes, the Neuro Tyrant, is a monster, and monsters cannot hold it. Like I said, Tyranids are tricky, folks, even for people who play them. We have Instinctive Defense. It is a 15-point enhancement. I apologize. This is the enhancement that is normally taken. This or one more. It's usually one of the 2. Very rarely more than 1, though, in this attachment. Any Tyranids model can take this, and while the bearer is within 6 inches of one or more friendly harvester unit, you can target the unit with this enhancement with the heroic intervention stratagem for free. In addition, while it's within 6 inches of one or more harvester units, models in this bearer's unit have fights first. This is really good on a Hive Tyrant. You can just put a Hive Tyrant somewhere, shuffle him over to save the day, or shuffle him somewhere else where a harvester within 6, and now you have 6 strength 10 attacks hitting on 2s, AP 2, flat 3 damage, twin linked, coming at you, all for 0 CP. This is a very, very nice, if that is your playstyle, and can see play. It is very good. You could also give it to a Broodlord, put it behind a wall and let someone charge you and they couldn't shoot you, and then you have fights first with your Gene Stealers. Same with a Warrior Prime. There's another enhancement that is arguably better on either one of those units, but this is a very good free heroic and fights first for 15 points. Hard to pass up. You have Biophagic Flow, which is an aura for 10 points. It is a Tyranid model only. It's while a friendly harvester model is within 12 inches of the bearer of this enhancement, when using the Feed the Swarm ability, which is the name of the detachment rule that we went over, the recover an infantry model or D3 plus 1 wounds on a monster, that harvester can regenerate one friendly Tyranid unit within 9 of it instead of within 6. So this is a bit abstract to think about, but the bearer looks over to a harvester unit, a Pyrovore unit, Hardspex unit, Norn Assimilator, Ripper Swarm, and says, heal further away. So instead of healing 6, you get to heal 9, which is a nice increase, though with how positioning-oriented Tyranids generally are, this one isn't usually as needed, but it's a nice safety net if you're learning this attachment and not quite got, 6 inches feels restrictive. It's only 10 points, it is the cheapest, so that does help, but it's rarely taken. The last enhancement is Parasitic Biomorphology, and the other one that I usually have in contention in C-Ran. It goes on any Tyranid model you want, and you add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit. The first time the bearer's unit destroys an enemy unit in the fight phase, if while within 6 inches of one or more friendly harvester units, until the end of the battle, add 1 to the attacks characteristics of all models in that unit. That is a lot of words and some hoops to jump through. So what you can do is you can put this on realistically a winged Tyranid Prime or a Broodlord, and suddenly they are now +2 strength from what the datasheet says, +1 for Synapse, +1 for this enhancement. So Gene Stealers are now strength 6, which is terrifying, and Warriors are strength 7, AP2, 1 damage, twin linked. And if they kill something, they all get +1 attack. So Gene Stealers go to strength 6, AP2, 1 damage, dev wounds, 5 attacks each, and Warriors go to strength 7, AP2, 1 damage, twin linked at 7 attacks each. Getting there is a bit rough because most of the time they are fire and forget missiles that die because your opponent will not let you use those twice. But if you can keep them safe, use the heroic intervention trick to fight first, weaken them, and then use your other debuffs, you could really mess someone up. And even if they wipe half the unit, that +1 attack could still put you over the damage threshold they weren't expecting. That is 25 points, which is the most expensive and complicated to use, but it is there, and if you can make it work for you, it will work. Going on to the stratagems, these are very good stratagems in this attachment. We have the Broodguard Impulse for 1 CP, can be used in any phase at all. It's whenever a harvester unit from your army was just destroyed, you use this stratagem on that unit even though it was killed. Until the end of the battle, the rest of the battle, each time a friendly Tyranids model makes an attack targeting the enemy unit that killed your harvester unit that activated the stratagem, you get +1 to wound. Tyranids love +1 to wound. We have, as I said in the beginning, we have a serious problem for T10 and higher. And even T9 and 8 can be kind of sketchy for some units. So this, just a 1 CP, you killed my thing over there, and now I'm going to kill you better, is amazing. I don't think I need to sell people on +1 to wound. I'm going to be honest with you. Reclaim Biomass, another 1 CP stratagem. It is in any phase when a Tyranid's unit from your army is destroyed, but before you remove the last unit from play. 1 Harvester unit within 6 inches of the unit that was just killed. So your Gene Stealers you sent in to harass them turn 1, and you had a, I don't know, Horsepecks advance up behind them. You killed their Rangers who infiltrated too close to you. They kill those Gene Stealers. You now play this strat because your Horsepecks is within 6 inches behind a wall. You regenerate one friendly Tyranid unit within 6 of your Harvester unit. So now this is in any phase, shooting or fight phase, you can regenerate again after your command phase for 1 CP. Something has to die, but it is a war game. That's going to happen. So this can be very useful to leverage things, get you out of battle shock tests to keep primary, get regenerate a unit in your opponent's fight phase, and regenerate in your command phase yet again to get 2 models back or 6 endless multitude models back. It's like I said, creative thinking is very rewarded in this army. Tyranid, fantastic naming conventions. We love it. It is 1 CP in your command phase, or just the command phase, not your command phase. I apologize. 1 Harvester unit from your army within range of an objective marker. It remains under your control even if you have no models in range of it. It is 1 CP, sticky and objective. It is very nice. You can do quite a few things with sticky objective, and especially with the way Tyranids can screen with their normally swarming presence, and other things such as spore mines and lictors can be held for quite a long time. So this is just a 1 CP, sticky the objective, and then as long as you keep it screened, you can forget about it. It's very nice. No one complains about sticky objectives. And it is the best timing. It is the command phase, not your movement phase or your command phase. So it is, and you don't have to die on it to stick you. Just be there and set it and move on with your life. A Blade of Carapace, a 2 CP stratagem. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after an enemy unit selects its targets. This is probably the bread and butter strat, although the +1 wound and sticky objective are really fighting for that spot too. It is in your opponent's said shooting or fight phase. 1 Harvester unit from your army that was selected as a target of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, models in your unit have a 5-up Feel No Pain ability. We saw this in Invasion Fleet. 5-up Feel No Pain, very good. But wait. If your unit is within range of an objective marker you control until the end of the phase, models in your unit have a 4-up Feel No Pain instead. Now we are in absurdity land. A unit of 3 Pyrovores is, T6, 5 wounds each. Suddenly they have a 3-up armor save and a 4-up Feel No Pain as well. That is rough. I had a friend of mine run Jane Czar and her Banshees into my guys, and I didn't pop it just to see. I'm like, let's just see what happens. I'm not going to pop the 4-up. I want to see what happens. She killed him to a man with a few wounds over. Had I popped the 4-up Feel No Pain, I'd have had a Pyrovore and a half left on average, which I could have just resurrected through the army rule because they are infantry. Meaning this, for 2 CP, I could have just negated all the damage my buddy did. This is insane. Then you go to things like Horsepexes or Norn Assimilators, and it is amazing. 4-up Feel No Pain is probably the best defensive rule in the game. Maybe half damage, but this is mathematically half damage as well, so it's very good. We have Secure Biomass for 1 CP and the fight phase, yours or your opponent's, and it is 1 Tyranid unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons equipped by it have lethal hits, and if it's a Harvester unit, each time it makes a melee attack, a successful wound of 5 scores a critical hit. This is situationally good. The obvious go-to is the Norn Assimilator with all of its high damage, low volume attacks. But where it can be very good is on the Horsepecks. With its Shoveling Claws and Grasping Tongue, just a myriad of attacks, all getting crit 5s, can be very nice. This is a generally good damage pump. Lethal hits mean strength largely doesn't matter. And finally, for our last stratagem, we have Rapacious Hunger for 1 CP. It is in your fight phase only. Just after a Tyranid unit was destroyed, your unit immediately regenerates. Oh, I'm sorry, you had 1 Tyranid unit that destroyed an enemy unit. I apologize. It immediately regenerates. When doing so, if it's a Harvester, you can choose for 1 model to gain D3 wounds, or if it gets D3. So if you would pick a monster and it would get the D3 wounds, it just goes up 3 automatically. So here's another way to get wounds back. So you could, theoretically, if you had 3 CP, I apologize, take a Norn Assimilator that's on an objective 15-0 CT 11, 2-up save, 5-up Fennel Pain, just on the data sheet, and your opponent got him down to 2 or 3 wounds or thinking going to finish him off, and he just gained 9 wounds during your turn. Nasty. Like I said, this is very much the reanimation protocol Tyranids, where they reclaim the biomass they kill to keep healing and regrowing their numbers. Very exciting, and a completely different, as you saw, a different play style from Invasion Fleet, where Invasion Fleet was more of a general bump to a little bit of everything: damage, movement, survivability, and some regeneration. This is all in on the defense. A Fennel Pain, multiple ways to regenerate further and more often, with only one enhancement and 1 stratagem to really push your damage, up over its normal edge. And for the last of the first 3 detachments we're going to go through today is the Crusher Stampede. I will be doing another video here soon going over the other 3 detachments, which are the Synaptic Nexus, Vanguard Onslaught, and Warrior Bioform Onslaught, as well as some general tips and tricks for playing Tyranids. So this is episode 1 of 2, so keep an eye out for that. Crusher Stampede is very much what it sounds like. It is your big monster parade. You want to bring the big boys. You want Pacific Rim. This is where you're going to find it. The Enraged Behemoth detachment rule is each time a Tyranid monster model from your army makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll if it's below its starting strength, and 1 to the wound roll if it's below half strength. In addition, while the monster unit, excluding battle shocked units, is at its starting strength, add 2 to the OC for models in that unit. Models in that unit is hilarious, because I believe the only multi-monster unit we can take is Old One Eye with 1 or 2 Carnifexes, but it's good that they added it. Yeah, so the more they hit your monsters, the more enraged they become. And again, while Tyranids aren't the most durable, it is not uncommon to live with 2 or 3 wounds, which you're bracketed, the +1 cancels out the -1, and now you're just hitting at parity, but you have +1 to wound, so it is very nice. And even if you're below half wound, you take a battle shock test. If you're in Synapse, you use 3 dice. Again, kind of not negating that penalty, but really pushing the odds in your favor. As for enhancements, we have Ominous Presence for 15 points, can go on a monster model only. And you add 3 to the OC of that monster. This is the most taken one, as it is a simple, give your Hive Tyrant 6 OC. Just make a Hive Tyrant 6 OC and don't worry about it. They got a 5 OC Ranger squad, you don't care, you got 6. They got to spend more to contest you. It's very nice. And if you're at full health, you are 8 OC, and then it gets real fun. You have Enraged reserved for 20 points, Tyranid monster model only. If the bear is destroyed by a melee attack, and if it has not fought this phase, roll a d6. On a 3-up, it fights on death. Not great. 20 points for a 3-up fight on death. Not great. Tyranid monster model only can take the null nodes for 10 points. Once per battle, when hit with a psychic attack, you can use this ability. If you do, until the end of the phase, you have a 5-up Fennel Pain against psychic attacks. This is bad. This is a once per... The other 2 detachments had 5-up Fennel Pain enhancement, 5-up Fennel Pain stratagem, and a 5-up Fennel Pain to a 4-up Fennel Pain stratagem. This sucks. I'm going to be honest with you. That's very bad. We have Monstrous Nemesis at 25 points. It also goes on a Tyranid monster. You're noticing a theme for the Crusher Stampede. I did not lie to you. It is each time the bearer makes a melee attack that targets a monster or vehicle, +1 to the wound roll. This is very nice. You throw this on a Hive Tyrant who is strength 10 because they're Synapse themselves, their strength 9 goes to strength 10, and twin linked innately, AP2 flat 3 damage. You can wound knights on 4s and medium to light vehicles on 3s twin linked. And even like rhinos and trucks and Eldar vehicles on 2s. So this could also be taken, I could see. It is a very, again, +1 to wound is desperately something Tyranids look for. And when we get to the episode where I go over units, you will see 1 or 2 notable exceptions that are in make almost every Tyranid list because of their ability to give you a +1 to wound. Moving on to the stratagems, we have Corrosive Viscera for 1 CP. It is in your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase after a Tyranid monster from your army with deadly demise that cannot fly has been destroyed. That Tyranid's monster model, you can use this stratagem even though it was destroyed. Remember, normally you can't target dead things, but this is specifically telling you you can, and in fact have to. You don't roll the d6 to see whether mortal wounds are inflicted by deadly demise. You just do. It's 1 CP, automatically blow up on your opponent. Situational, but can be very powerful. Can also hit you because deadly demise hits everything within 6 inches, remember, not just your opponent. But if you really need it, their character that you got assassin on lived and he came back and domed you, well, guess what? Eat D3 or D6 mortal wounds, nerd. Just blow up on them. It's also a cool way that if you have a like Screamer Killer that you put out and they kill turn 1 and you just want to get your +1 to hit going, you could auto blow it up to give your monsters 1 wound within your Exocrines, Tyrannofexes, whatever. Suddenly they're heavy with +1 to hit. Would you look at that? So you can use it to heavily damage your opponent. You can use it to start triggering your army roll early. You can go either way. You wouldn't do a Screamer Killer. You would do a Psychophage. It's a 95-point monster versus a 135-point monster, or 140, but you get what I mean. You can trick them into giving you your army roll for 1 CP. Rampaging Monstrosities is the next one. It is a 1 CP stratagem in the fight phase. It's 1 Tyranid monster unit from your army that has not been selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, whenever it makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll. It does say 1 Tyranid's monster unit. Normally, these are individual things, like the Hive Tyrants or the Norns. But again, Old One-Eye, who already gives his thing full re-roll to hits, is a unit. So if, for example, you don't have Old One-Eye, they precision him out and you're stuck with 2 Carnifexes doing nothing, you can still give them Old One-Eye's ability through this stratagem. So yeah, but just 1 CP, full reroll hits in the fight phase for 1 of your Tyranid monsters. Horsepexes love this. Hive Tyrants, even though they hit on 2s, if you're facing Death Card that make you hit on 4s, you're going to love this. Savage War. Remember what I mentioned about Battle Shock. In the fight phase, after an enemy unit has selected one of its targets, you spend 1 CP. 1 Tyranid monster from your unit in the army that was selected to target those attacks. The enemy unit must take a Battle Shock test. So as soon as they target you, you can say 1 CP, take a Battle Shock test. Until the end of the phase, each time that enemy unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. That is Battle Shock test agnostic. It does not care what they rolled. It's a Battle Shock and -1 to hit for 1 CP. If that Battle Shock test has failed, subtract 1 from the ruin roll as well. Well, now your Chief 10 Hive Tyrant or Swarm Lord or 11 Norn is not only -1 to hit. Oops, they failed. You lose your OC. They can't use stratagems because they targeted you, unless they already have. And now they're -1 to wound you. So they went from wounding on 3s, 4s, God forbid 5s with volume to 4s, 5s, and 6s. Yeah, it's very good, very situational, because again, the Battle Shock test is dice, but they might not see it coming. It could be very good. Going on to Untrammelosity. I'm going to be real with you. I don't know what untrammeled means. I'm going to assume by context it means something like uncontrolled, but I'm man enough to admit I don't know. Hive Mind doesn't care about words. We care about BS. It's in your movement phase. 1 Tyranid's monster unit from your army has not been selected to move. Until the end of the phase, each time it makes a normal, advanced, or fallback move, it can move through models, excluding Titanic, and sections of terrain that are 4 inches or less in height. It cannot move within engagement range of enemy models, and it cannot end within engagement range. It can also move through sections of terrain features that are more than 4 inches in height, but if it does, roll 1d6 on a 1, it's battle shocked. So again, a lot of words. Basically, this ignores models that exist, ignores 4-inch or less terrain for free, it ignores taller terrain, but it kind of has the Knights rule where you roll a d6, not a battle shock or leadership test, and on a 1, you fail. If you need to get to where you're going, this is great because monsters hate walls. But there is, and especially for move blocks. If someone's like, I'm just going to move block you with Wolf Jail. No, you're not. Okay, this unit's going through your wolves, and the rest of them are just going to hit your wolves in the face. Or Skitarii, or, Gaunts, Gretchen, whatever. You can just, nope, I'm going out anyway. Very utility, very useful. Some slight risk, but very good. The worst thing for vehicle and, in this relevant case, monster armies is getting traffic jammed, and that really helps alleviate it. Swarm Guided Salvos for 1 CP. This is a damage increase stratagem. It's in your shooting phase. 1 Tyranids monster from your unit that has not been set to shoot yet. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by monsters in that unit have ignores cover. And until the end of the phase, each time a model makes an attack, you can ignore any or all hit modifiers to the ballistic skill and to the hit roll. This is great. This is Maleceptors and Execranes with ignore cover and ignore if you stood still and got your heavy, but you're bracketed, you can ignore that. You can ignore smoke, stealth, the Death Guard auras, Nurglings, all kinds of stuff. This is just 1 CP. One thing gets to shoot at max efficiency, and it is we love it, especially on command ignore cover, because Maleceptors are AP2. We love to see it. Even Carnifexes could potentially strength 7 AP2 1 damage Death Spitters or Devourers could love that. So very good strat. Will be used 5 turns out of the game. If you give them turn 1 shooting, it'll be used 5 turns out of the game. It'll definitely be used 4 turns. The last stratagem is Massive Impact for 1 CP. It is in your charge phase. After a Tyranid's model ends a charge move, you target that Tyranid model that charged, monster model specifically. Select 1 enemy unit in range and roll 6d6. For every 4 up, they take a mortal wound. This is just worse tank shock. As I will get into after I do the attachments and go over the army and the units, I apologize. You will see that this army is missing a couple of keywords that are relevant in the core strats. One of them is vehicles. We have no vehicles in this army, meaning we do not get to use tank shock ever. We make do, and it does make our CP management a little better because it's a CP we don't ever have to think about, but it is also a CP we don't ever get to think about. So that is a quick a overview of the army, its army rule, as well as 3 of the 7 detachments. Next episode, I will go over the remaining 4 detachments: Synaptic Nexus, Unending Swarm, Warrior Bioform Onslaught, and Vanguard Onslaught. And I believe in episode 3, because, wow, 4 detachments is going to be a lot, I will go over the various data sheets, as well as some of the things to look out for, such as no tank shock, for example, that kind of get you in the mindset of playing this army and also not having to worry about. Because opponents have asked me, are you going to tank shock? And I'm like, I can't do that. Okay. And we move on with the game. They never worry about it again because tank shock just isn't in my roster. So I hope everyone enjoyed this, found it educational and entertaining. And I will see you all again on the next one.